When people think Denver, they think Colorado. And when people think Colorado, they're picturing Aspen.
Yeah.
That's what's in their brain, right?
I flew into Denver and I remember being like, what? That was like a $700,000 house here, which, by the way, is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they're like, that house here would be, $950,000 or $1 million.
When was the last time you went to an event in Denver and didn't sit in traffic on I-25?
The limit does not exist.
I would say Denver has done a better job of kind of planning for growth, I guess I would say. Like,
what is absolutely empirically the worst place on the planet? Denver International Airport.
If you go online, pick your website, whatever you want to look at, and you look at crime stats for Colorado Springs, it's not that great.
When you look at the two cities,
Yep.
there is a drastic difference in the political leanings of the two cities. That is also a fact.
Said I've been here almost 20 years now, and since I first moved here in 2005, there's been a drastic transition, I guess I would say.
If that's why you're moving here, then Colorado Springs really is better. Moving is a huge decision, and a lot of people, when they move to Colorado, they understand that they're going to be either going to Denver or Colorado Springs. They have similar job opportunities, perhaps, and they're just trying to figure out, where do I really want to live? Where, I'm leaving wherever I'm at, and I'm coming to Colorado. Should I go Denver or Colorado Springs? Because let's be honest, Pueblo is usually not in the conversation.
No.
And we're not really trying to lean either way. It's just, we're just going to kind of present some information and let you make the decision, because it's your life, it's your family, it is your job, and it's your livelihood that you're trying to figure out. And we just want to kind of give you some, as much unbiased information as we can, but
maybe a little bit of bias.
There's going to be a little bit of bias in there because I freaking love Colorado Springs. So we'll just get that out there.
Just throw that out there right off the bat.
Number one
Number one
is that Colorado Springs is just cheaper.
Cheaper in general.
In general.
And it's not just, houses are cheaper. That's true. Property taxes a little bit lower. Sales tax is a little bit lower. So overall, Colorado Springs is a less expensive city to live in than the Metro Denver area.
Yeah, and look, Metro Denver, it's huge. It's so much bigger. 2.9 million in the Metro Denver metro area, excuse me. And then also it just encompasses an enormous swath of land.
Yeah.
Whereas the only way that we start to get similar is if you really start, a bunch of our surrounding cities, it really just becomes El Paso County. But but Denver is just huge, right? It's the A city. Colorado Springs is the B city.
Yeah.
Very, very close. If you haven't looked at it on a map, it's 45 minutes, depending on where you're at in Colorado Springs. But
yeah.
So when we say it's cheaper, obviously you have to look at where you're talking about, right?
This is it
because you could live on the total east side of Denver, all the way out east.
I'll say Aurora. I'll say it right now.
Okay, thank you. And then you're comparing it to the Broadmoor. And
night and day.
Okay, people. Yeah. We're talking about same comparisons, similar comparisons. It is just if you're near the mountains in Denver or you're near the mountains in Colorado Springs, it's going to be more expensive in Denver.
Yeah, there's no comparison. And I think a lot of that, and why we see that, is that during the COVID years, everybody wanted to go to Denver for whatever reason. And prices just shot up like crazy. And Colorado Springs historically has always followed Denver 2 to 3 years behind it. So when Denver does something, the Springs does it a couple years later. So we've seen prices go up here a lot on the housing side, but nothing like the demand that there was in Denver during those COVID years. And it hasn't come back down, and it's not going to come back down.
Yeah, but then interestingly enough is as COVID came on the other side of that hump, is actually a lot of people started leaving Denver. I mean, and this happened nationally too, is a lot of people started leaving bigger cities and trying to get to places that have more space. Now, I think, were they moving to Stetson Hills from Denver? No. Were they moving to Briargate even? Probably not. Because a lot of people, I think, that were coming from Denver were really looking for more space, bigger plots of land. So you saw places like Rockrimmon go wild, Monument go wild, Black Forest go absolutely bananas. Still hasn't really totally recovered, I think.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely spots that are more expensive in the Colorado Springs area, but that's just kind of economically kind of some of what you're seeing. And like Chris said, it's not just the housing market.
Yeah.
Now, we post a lot on social media. And if you look at, for example, if you look at my TikTok, real Kyle Pettit, I post a lot of home tours and I get comments all the time where someone's like, this house in Denver, like I post like a $700,000 house here, which by the way is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they're like, that house here would be, 950,000 or $1 million. And maybe they're right. It kind of, again, it depends on where in Denver they're talking about or where the Denver metro area. But like, Boulder is bananas. And I know Boulder is not Denver, so go ahead and calm down. But it's part of that Denver metro area. It's people associate it because they know where Denver is and it's kind of like the outskirts there. You start getting to like Golden and Boulder and like the housing market there is crazy.
It's like a whole nother level.
Crazy.
It really is. Yeah.
Now it's amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Boulder and Golden are freaking amazing, but like
they're very expensive. Yeah,
very, very expensive. I was in Denver this past week for a couple days, and it was like now everything everywhere is pretty expensive except Salina, Kansas. But like, drinks $18, $24.
See, I feel like that's what you get with that A city concept you talk about, right? Like you go to any A city and stuff just costs more. You're in Chicago, New York, LA, DC, whatever it is, stuff just costs a lot more.
Yeah.
You get to the little sub areas around it and stuff and it's because they know they can charge that. People are going to pay that price.
Yeah, it's kind of tourism price.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just all those day-to-day things, like you said, go out to eat, drinks. It's a lot less down here.
Yeah, me and my wife Lauren, like that, we did not have a single meal that we paid less than $50 for.
Yeah,
like not even close. I mean, and that's just like expected up there. Even just getting a coffee and a donut, it's like so much money. You're like, holy moly, how do people do this? And it's a little bit of a self-licking ice cream cone because it costs more there. People get paid more because people have to get paid more. Costs go up because it costs more to run a business. Overhead is still a thing. Anyway, we're not going to get into that, but it just generally costs more. Groceries cost more. Vacations or stays cost more. Food costs more. Gas costs more. Everything.
It's just overall more expensive.
Yep. And so if money is your thing, if that's your main deciding factor, which, gosh, in today's day and age,
it's a pretty big factor.
It's a pretty big factor.
Yeah.
Then Colorado Springs is going to be just generally better. And if you want even better, go to Pueblo.
On the price side of things.
On the price side of things. Now, the safety side of things.
The safety side. This is another one that it gets brought up a lot because, hey, if you go online, pick your website, whatever you want to look at, and you look at crime stats for Colorado Springs, it's not that great. Like, there's some bad ratings in there, but I honestly don't know where the heck that data comes from.
I don't either.
It boggles my mind, man.
No, because what I experience in my day-to-day life, it is not that. Now, safety is always an interesting one to talk about. And so we try to, just follow the data and the facts as much as possible. Because like, look, I'm from St. Louis, but then I went to college in Utah. If you think safety in my like anecdotal experience of safety in St. Louis is the same as my anecdotal safety evidence in Utah, which then factors into my anecdotal safety evidence in Colorado Springs. Like, it's just different. So everyone has a little bit different tolerance level.
Definitely so.
But sometimes I look at the maps of like the data in Colorado Springs and I'm like, what?
And
I get that?
I do not understand it. In Colorado Springs, it's like every city of, 500,000 people plus, right? There are parts of town that, probably not the best. You probably don't want to be at 3:00 in the morning, right? Like with your little 2-year-old walking along. That's every city though.
Yeah.
But when you compare that and kind of the feel of Colorado Springs, and I mean, we're out and about throughout the city all day long, every day, right? It's not like we're basing this just on, our little neighborhood that we live in. We're all over the city all the time. So you take that feel and then you compare it to Denver. For me personally, and my experiences, it's drastically different.
Drastically
different.
Well, okay. Let's just call it what it is. If you compare the amount of homeless in Colorado Springs and Denver, it is incomparable.
Yeah.
It's actually the number of homeless in Colorado, reported homeless in Colorado Springs is actually laughably low.
Pretty low, yeah.
It's just that they're all concentrated in the same basic area because the city is not that big.
Yeah.
And so you find them often right in the downtown area, right around, what's the little park right across the bridge here?
Monument Valley.
Thank you. Monument Valley Park, right? You see them there. You see them under the bridge from, if you're on Tejon or Nevada, going towards like Ivy Wild, like under that bridge there. Like there's a
creek walk area.
And it's like, I could probably, I'm not going to try to do this and win $50, but you could probably give me $50 and say, Kyle, go find and tag every homeless person in Colorado Springs. I could probably do it.
Yeah.
Because they're basically all in the same area. Now, I will say, I've talked, we've talked to Mayor Yemi quite a bit, and there's big initiatives. And something I like about Mayor Yemi, for the record, is he very much acknowledges the effort that was put in by the prior administration, local government, that there's been a large effort because they want the city to be safer. And Mayor Yemi has said he wants, when like US Weekly puts out their
top 10 cities to live in.
Safest cities. He wants Colorado Springs to be on that list. I think that's cool. That's like a very aspirational, not just let's reduce crime, but let's make a concerted effort to like get on that list. That's a
big goal,
margin to reach for.
And it's the same, like just like how we talked about with the cost of things, right? Houses are more in this area. I mean, facts are facts, right? Everybody can look it up. The safety, it's the same thing. If you are in the Broadmoor area of Colorado Springs, probably feel pretty safe. If you're in the Cherry Hills area of Denver, probably feel pretty safe. But there's areas in each city where you don't feel nearly as safe. So for me, it's really kind of that overall feeling. When I'm walking around downtown Denver or in a random neighborhood compared to when I'm walking around Colorado Springs, I just feel like Colorado Springs feels a little bit safer.
Yeah. And actually, let me say this, because you mentioned two like pretty affluent neighborhoods.
Yeah.
There's a lot of non-affluent neighborhoods in Colorado Springs that are also extremely safe.
100%.
Rockrimmon.
Yeah.
Briargate. Like Northgate, right? Like you can find all Claremont Ranch, where I live. Like Cimarron Hills. Like there's a lot of neighborhoods that are not affluent neighborhoods that are still very, very safe. So here's actually, so to help everybody out, when they're looking at these maps, how do you decipher, like, how do you really know if it's safe? Like what's the data that you're looking at? And again, it's going to be different for everybody because maybe everybody has different like trauma or different experiences or whatever. But like to me, for example, I want to know about like violent crime.
Yeah, I'm not if there's pickpockets, that sucks. Not as worried about that. But the violent crime, murders, homicides, things like that. That's what I don't want to see red on the map where I'm thinking about living,
constantly.
Right? Yeah.
Because theoretically,
who knows what happens
if it
here
happens,
and there,
that person has been apprehended and put in jail or whatever. And like, it's like, okay, well, it happened.
Yeah.
And like, was it the neighbor? I don't know. So you kind of have to look at the actual crime data and what is happening there. Yeah. I don't think you can just see like, oh, it's red. It's like, yeah, but why is it red?
Right. Yeah.
So follow-up question. So for example, when I lived in Clovis, New Mexico, like when I'm on base, I don't lock my doors.
Yeah.
For example, like my car doors. That's just me. That's probably dumb, but I just don't. Do you always lock your car door in Colorado Springs?
So you are talking to the person who couldn't find his keys for 2 weeks, but my car has a push button, so they were just under the seat somewhere. So I never lock my doors, honestly. Okay. So maybe not the best person to ask. I think that a vast majority of people, and I'll use my wife as an example here, always locks the car doors.
So do I.
Just good practice, right?
Yeah. I also lock my car doors here, and I lock my house. Front and back door, and we've got dogs, and it's not like here. It's not totally just because like I don't feel safe, but I feel less safe, honestly, than I did in Utah, for example. But again, that feeling of being in Denver. Dude, Denver, and part of it is just because I'm not as familiar with Denver.
I was going to say, I think there's a big, as we're having this conversation, like there's a big familiarity piece to it as well, right? Because I know there's people from Denver that are going to watch this and be like, what are you guys talking about? It's great up here.
The comments all the time are like, Colorado Springs, go to Colorado Springs if you want to get shot. Right. You're like, what?
I don't know where this is happening at,
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But, so there's definitely a familiarity thing. There's definitely an understanding of like, just knowing, like if you're in Denver and just knowing kind of where places are safer or not. I think it's easier to get a little overwhelmed in Denver because it's big buildings. It's, a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
There are homeless everywhere. And look, I got to be honest too. Denver has had a massive influx of immigration lately.
Yeah.
There were busloads that came there, and Mayor Yemi declared Colorado Springs to not be a sanctuary city.
Yeah.
And he has fought very hard against that. So those numbers start to get skewed. I'm not saying that they're just doing a bunch of crime. I'm just saying like the natural course of human events.
Yeah, and it taxes other resources that now can't do things that maybe they would have been doing before on the law enforcement side. So it's just it's a factor to consider for sure. Yeah, I think. Go ahead. No, I was going to say on the familiarity piece, this is just something that popped into my mind is so Amy went to college south side of Chicago.
Oh yeah,
right?
Hell yeah, brother.
But when she was going to school there, she's like, "Oh, it's no big deal. You just obviously don't wear any exposed jewelry when you get on the L. It's just normal life, right?" But then you take Amy now living in Black Forest and put her back in that environment, she'd probably like, what in the crackers is this all about?
Yeah.
So there's so much of that where I feel like it's so subjective and people kind of swayed a little bit. But I think bottom line up front, if you trust anything we're saying, Colorado Springs is safer, man.
Yeah. Empirically, it is factually correct. It is factually, per the data, it is safer than Denver.
Yeah.
And I hope that what you're getting out of this is just like that it's getting your brains moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Do your due diligence. Yeah.
Here's something that I want to say, and if I can get preachy to the crowd for a second, is at the end of the day, I think that what we have to do is we have to take deliberate action in our communities to make them safer. So, for example, we're front porch people. I love sitting on the front porch. I know my neighbors.
Yeah.
I have all my neighbors' phone numbers. We text each other. Like, if my garage door gets left open, they text me and let me know if my dogs are out. Also, if there's somebody suspicious walking up and down the street, like, if it maybe a porch pirate, there to steal Christmas packages. Also, a lot of communities have like community Facebook groups,
right? Yeah.
Which those can also get out of hand, but mine is really great, right? And we had some people that were kind of casing the neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
And so people took pictures of them and put them up on the internet, and the police came and that was a really good use. So Mayor Yemi talked about this when he's talking about this initiative. He's like, it's also encouraging communities to be more communal.
Right, yeah.
And he specifically said, he was like, during COVID, everyone like went back to like solo.
Exactly,
like
man.
in their little stovepipe. It's just me in my house or whatever. He was like, but we want to encourage more community events, which we're not even going to talk about this in our list, but Colorado Springs has a lot of community events, especially in the summer. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that like you can also do in your little neighborhood or block parties.
Yeah.
Block parties, community garage sales being coordinated together. I think that type of stuff encourages peace. It encourages safety, right? It's more than just the little neighborhood watch sign. It's it's like, no, we have like a real community here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of neighborhoods.
You feel like you feel that a lot in Colorado Springs.
I would
for sure. Yeah.
agree.
100%. Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
What's number 3? I don't know.
So this is one that people, I would say, get mixed up on. No fault of their own. But when people think Denver, they think Colorado. And when people think Colorado, they're picturing Aspen.
Yeah.
That's what's in their brain, right?
Yeah.
That is not Denver.
No.
Denver's on the plains.
Yep.
Proximity.
Because it's so big.
Exactly. In Denver, historically, Denver City, Cherry Creek flows through there. That's why the little heart of the city started back in the trapping mountain men days of the 1800s. And it's grown and it's grown. So now, far west Denver pushes up against the foothills, Morrison, those areas. But Colorado Springs, you are up against a 14,000 foot peak. Proximity to the mountains.
A big old girl.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
And a huge pro, in my opinion, for Colorado Springs versus Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually remember the first time that I flew into Colorado, flew to Colorado. I flew into Denver, and I remember being like, what?
I was in the mountains, man.
And because I had come from Utah, actually, I'd flown out of Salt Lake Airport, which is also in the valley, in the Salt Lake Valley, where you've got mountains on both sides.
Yep.
And Salt Lake is right up under the Wasatch. Park City is right on the other side of those mountains. Like, it's right freaking there.
Yep.
And then I flew into Denver. And by the way, the airport is, I don't know physically how many miles, but it's a lot.
It was DIA, the current airport is where you flew into. Yeah.
And it is a lot of miles to the actual mountain range.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, what the heck? And then we drove downtown because we were going to a Nuggets game. I was staying with a friend who lived in Aurora. And I was like, this is crazy. Like the mountains were like hazy off in the distance. I was like, oh, this kind of has a weird feel to it. It was just bizarre to me.
Yeah.
And on that trip, we didn't go any further west than like Ball Arena.
Okay.
And so, 100%. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So why? Why would you live over here?
Right, yeah. You're driving through Denver and just commuting, driving around, whatever you're doing. The mountains, you can see like a little bit of the ridge, Mount Evans, Gray's, Torrey's kind of out there in the distance, but it's away from you.
Yeah,
whereas you're driving down
away.
I-25, coming like Castle Rock to I-25, coming into Colorado Springs, and Pikes Peak is just boom right there.
I'm going to Google it right now.
How far is I-25 from Pikes Peak?
So I'm going to do Denver International.
Okay. And this is a big thing, not just, aesthetically, every day, just living there, what you see. Obviously, it's beautiful to see the mountains, but it's also proximity to do things as well. If you want to go feel like you're in the mountains and go do a trail run and feel like you're in the foothills, in Denver, you're driving 30 minutes at least to get, depending on where you live, obviously, but from kind of the downtown area, you're driving at least 30 minutes west to get into the foothills. Whereas Colorado Springs, if you're downtown, you're driving, 10 minutes?
Yeah,
maybe?
So this says from Denver International to Golden. This is actually comical. First of all, it's 31 miles.
Straight distance? Yeah. Straight line?
Yep, which is very far. It says it would take you 31 minutes. That is 100% false, by the way. Just the distance. It's really, really far. Of course, you're going to be dealing with traffic also trying to get there, but that'll be another topic in and of itself. But so why does it matter though? It matters because if you're trying to move to Colorado because you want lifestyle change, right?
Yeah. You want that Colorado lifestyle.
Yeah, you want to be able to hike and mountain bike and rock climb or just go on more nature walks, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If that's why you're moving here, then Colorado Springs really is better.
Yeah.
Unless you have a ton of money and you're going to live on the west side of Denver.
Yeah.
Because up there, it's pretty dope. Like it's cool. Like up near Golden, especially like the canyons up there are really beautiful. There's a ton of good rock climbing. You have access to I-70, which has really good access to the mountains and stuff like that. But but Colorado Springs, it's just, I personally feel like it's just more accessible.
And also, as we're sitting here talking about this, it's not just the foothills, like that range, right? It's not just that, but also Colorado Springs, there's all these bluffs like Palmer Park, right? All this elevation and terrain change that you get in Colorado Springs that just feels more Colorado-y. But then in Denver,
that's a good point.
It's freaking flat. Like once you come
Until
down,
you hit the mountains.
once you come down, like if you're coming out of the mountains into Denver, you're coming down I-70 and you see this sprawling sea of lights out in front of you. Once you get to the bottom of the hill, basically at like 470 and 70, it's just flat to freaking Kansas, man.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. And something that is pretty cool about Colorado Springs is the bluffs, the parks, there's tons of elevation. And sometimes you see it like when you're driving by UCCS, for example, and you're like facing the mountains and you're coming down, and like if the light is just right, you really do see all like the changes in elevation and the foothills and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, this is actually crazy
cool.
looking. And you got big freaking Pikes Peak just sitting in the back. And like right now, we just had like a pretty big snow yesterday. And Pikes looks like it's out of the freaking Himalayas.
Yeah, and right now there's like no snow in town, but the peak is covered. I love that.
Yeah, it looks really, really freaking cool.
Sure,
so mountain proximity is definitely,
you can't argue against it.
Yeah,
it's closer. Colorado Springs is mo better. We kind of talked about this a little bit. You started to, but it's a key point that to me is a big deal. Again, it's relative where you're from. Traffic. So less traffic in Colorado Springs. Now, let me say, I've been in Colorado Springs for like 19 years now. That's kind of crazy. Been here a long time. And traffic in Colorado Springs drives me crazy now. I hate it with a passion, but it's all relative.
It's all relative.
People come here from LA or even the Dallas area, which is a huge poo show of traffic, and they're like, "Oh, this is nothing. This is wonderful." And in the big scheme of things, it is pretty freaking nice in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And especially when you compare it to Denver.
Yeah.
When was the last time you went to an event in Denver and didn't sit in traffic on I-25?
The limit does not exist.
That actually never occurred. Yes, exactly.
Actually, okay, I have to be honest. When we went to Red Rocks the other day. Does that count?
Yeah,
would you count? That's a Denver
Definitely,
event.
Yeah.
We actually went to Red Rocks the other day and it was a Friday night show.
Okay.
And we actually had it was a pretty clean drive. We actually drove all the way up to the parking lot. I was like, I'm not kidding. We were driving up and I said out loud in the car, I was like, are we sure that the show is tonight?
It's tonight, right?
Because we were like the only car at one point. I was like,
how early did you get there?
Dude, like not that early.
Okay.
30 minutes prior.
Okay, so this is the one example I can think of.
It is actually the one example. So it was crazy. And the show was packed, by the way. 10,000 people showed up. It was busy. I think it was like, because the show started at like 6. We were actually kind of confused because then we like sat and we like stood in line and they like weren't letting people in. So that was maybe a little bit confusing. Maybe we misread like the actual
start time. Yeah. But either way.
Anyway, contrast, Ball Arena.
Oh my gosh, man. True downtown.
Yeah.
It's like when you're going I-25, for those not familiar, from Colorado Springs up to Denver, like you said, 45 minutes, depends on where you're at between the two. But when you get to the south side of Denver, which I would call kind of Ridgeway, Lincoln Avenue, kind of that far south section, from there to downtown, it's just
it's crazy.
Always backed up. And if there's an event, Broncos game, Rockies game, Nuggets game, concert, whatever it is, any event downtown, it's just stop and go.
And basically you can't circumnavigate it.
There's no other way to,
because it's like all roads lead to hell.
I have tried all of these, like, oh, let me jump on Parker Road, and that took an hour longer than I thought it would.
It's pretty much just bad. Colorado Springs, now the problem here is that it is smaller, and so like you have a lot, I think an unnecessary amount of traffic lights. And like I was driving through a neighborhood the other day that had these stop signs. It was a T intersection and they had stop signs. And I was like, why is this not just flowing through?
What is happening here? Yeah.
This is not that busy of a neighborhood. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes our traffic patterns are very weird here. We have a lot of stoplights, and they're not on time, or they're on timers. They're not on sensors.
Right.
And so like you'll be sitting there and over 2 a.m, you're like still just at a solid red light, not a flashing red light with somebody else that has flashing yellow. It's just a solid ass red light.
Yep.
And you're like, what am I doing here?
What is happening right now?
That drives me ballistic. So I think we have some inefficiencies here. Yeah. For sure. And we have like some of our major roads that are not wide enough, like they weren't designed wide enough. And so, maybe it's like, so for example, Mark Shuffle. Mark Shuffle's getting very busy and it was just 2 lanes. So now they're expanding it so that it's, 2 lanes on either side.
Right. Yeah.
Which will help. But like in the middle of the city, you can't make some of those changes.
That's a good point. Is I would say Denver has done a better job, as I'm kind of thinking about areas in Denver, done a little bit better job of kind of planning for growth, I guess I would say. Like Colorado Springs very much so is almost reactionary. At least they were through like the 90s and early 2000s when it was like Stetson Hills and, all that area was just getting built out. Yeah. And Mark Shuffle's a good example where it was like 2 lanes and there really wasn't this plan of where the hell everybody's going to be able to drive at. So Denver, I think, has done a better job with that than what Colorado Springs has.
Yeah, Colorado Springs has grown very rapidly, much bigger than they, I think, anticipated.
Quickly, right? Yeah.
Yeah, very quickly. And so the infrastructure has just struggled to keep up. But that being said, like true, like I am stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
It does happen on a couple roads. Like if there's an accident on Platte, it's going to be a dark time.
Right, yeah.
Because there's so many stoplights, it's just inefficient. But that being said, it's obvious that the traffic is going to be worse in Denver because it's
a bigger
Denver.
city. There's more people.
It's Denver.
Yeah.
Now, what is absolutely empirically the worst place on the planet? Denver International Airport. Oh my God. Now, something that's pretty baller, we have an airport here. And it is not an airport like Durango, right? Like Durango, you're going to be on little tiny baby planes, little ERJs, doing like little tiny connections. There's
tiny
two a
jumps,
day. Yeah. Colorado Springs is a very busy airport. We have a lot of tourism that comes through specifically to come to Colorado Springs.
You get the U.S. Olympic teams, a lot of military, temporary duty here.
In the summertime, you've got tons of people that are coming to Pikes Peak and for the races, for the ascent, which is running up Pikes Peak, which is absurd. Driving up Pikes Peak, racing, which is also freaking absurd.
Right.
And so there's a lot of tourism that comes through here.
Yeah.
And so we have not a major international airport, but we have a legitimate sized airport.
It's a legitimate airport, yeah.
And
there are direct flights to big cities, Dallas, Phoenix.
By the way, we also just got our first nonstop international flight to Cabo.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Thank God. Thank you, Southwest Airlines, for doing that for us.
Southwest and I don't get along, but continue.
I know. But that's a pretty big deal. So yes, most of the flights out of Colorado Springs Airport, you're going to be like doing a connection through Denver or through Dallas.
Yeah.
But Denver International Airport is way on the east side of town. It is out there, and it is a nightmare. I hate that
I don't
airport.
even know. I was going to say I equate it to like O'Hara, LaGuardia, but I think it's worse.
I think it's worse.
I do.
It is
I don't
worse.
know what it is about it, but it takes forever. I'm more like the guy that I typically will sprint to my gate because that's how much time I think I need to.
Yep.
But even I get there like 2 hours ahead of time.
Yeah, because it's confusing. Okay, so as an example, why is it? By the way, people that are not from Colorado that fly through Denver also comment on how dumb that airport is.
Right, yeah.
But so as an example, you have like the main airport, and then you have an east lot and a west lot.
Yep.
And so I went on a flight one time. I was going on a pheasant hunt out in Iowa, and I flew out on one airline and flew back in on another airline.
Oh, your car was on the way on the other side.
Yep. So I flew out on like Frontier and flew back on United. Well, one was the east lot,
man,
and I came back in the west lot. I forgot because I got home, late. And I walk out to the west lot, and I'm like, this does not feel right.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, I'm in the east lot. So I had to walk all the way back through it was like a 25-minute walk to like walk all the way back across the building, get outside, walk all the way across that lot. I hate it.
I will say, because I don't want to fully bash on the Denver airport because
I do.
Yes, it is very, very frustrating. One nice thing about it is you can get direct flights to a lot of places.
Basically anywhere in the world.
Everywhere. I've flown direct from Denver to Frankfurt, like you're flying over the pond directly from Denver, no connections. So that aspect is really, really nice just because I like straight flights. I don't like to connect. I like the nonstops. But for just ease of getting into the parking cost.
$30 a day uncovered.
Just in a lot. May as well be a dirt lot.
Yep.
Just $30.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like 8 here, I think.
Yeah, so sometimes sometimes that becomes a part of my calculus, right? If I'm trying to just do a cheap trip, it's like, well, it's $100 more to fly out of here, but it's a 5-day trip, so it'll actually be cheaper for me to just get dropped off here, right, than to drive all the way up
Park
there.
Up there, yeah.
It's an hour and a half away from my house.
Yeah.
So now Denver is a major hub for United Airlines.
Yep.
And it is it's not an actual domicile, but it's also a major hub for Southwest. So if you're in the airline industry, that's a really big, that's important to know.
Yeah.
By the way, my wife got a conditional job offer with United Airlines.
That's awesome.
Announced right here. So United, if you're watching this,
Thank you.
please hire her and get her in a class like tomorrow.
That'd be great.
That'd be really great. We love you. 5-star review. That's nice. Anywho, if you travel a lot, like if that's part of your job is a lot of travel, then being closer to Denver Airport actually might be better.
Might make sense, yeah.
But you have to weigh it. You have to weigh it. I can't do it for you.
Yeah,
No, there is a Centurion Lounge there. There's a lot of good restaurants. There's a Voodoo Donuts in there, which is kind of fun.
Okay, yeah.
So whatever. Colorado Springs basically has nothing in the airport itself.
No, there's, I think, a Caribou Coffee maybe.
But from there to get to downtown, it's 15 minutes.
Yeah. One more thing on the airport, because it's a big thing for me and it's a huge frustration. Have you flown on any hunting trips where you've taken firearms out of Denver?
No.
wow, that is a Pusho and
good to know.
half. I mean, it takes like an extra hour to get through everything.
Really?
Whereas you go to Colorado Springs, you go up to the counter, like you have a firearm, dude comes over, looks at it, puts a little stickers in it, and you roll out like 2 minutes later. It's night and day difference. So anytime I'm flying on a hunting trip, Colorado Springs. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's good to know. Well, and why is that? It's because politics. Now, even though I am wearing this iconic shirt, I just think that it's an iconic shirt. And we're not going to talk about political affiliation. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff. But when you look at the two cities, there is a drastic difference in the political leanings of the two cities. That is also a fact. And unfortunately, I feel like what I learned over the last 3 to 5 years is that as much as like I don't want politics to run my life, it's everywhere.
It is. You can't escape it, right?
You really can't escape it. It comes up in all conversations. It's coming up in this podcast right freaking now. But this is what we'll say. It is pretty obvious that Denver is a major city, and it is a very, very left-leaning city. It is very blue.
It's a very, very blue city. It's like, think of big cities across the country. That's typically what you see, and it's no different.
As you go further west towards Golden and Boulder, they get very... I don't want to use the word extreme, but it is very... It's just that it's in your face.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go. Like, it is... And so what I measure this is the amount of political paraphernalia out and about.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's like really the way that I measure it.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're like political signs, political paraphernalia, emblems, flags that are just everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And then ultimately, it really then comes down to like, what are the policies that you're seeing enacted, and how does that affect
your day-to-day life, right?
Your day-to-day life, right?
Yep.
And again, this is not to argue about politics or anything like that, but Colorado Springs is a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Historically, back in the 70s and 80s.
Very, very conservative.
Yeah.
Extremely conservative.
By the way, which I also don't like super freaking right. Like, there's movies made about how wildly right Colorado Springs was. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that, because today it's not like that.
No.
It is much more, what I like to say, purple. It's very purpley.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I think there's been like I said, I've been here almost 20 years now. And since I first moved here in 2005, there's been a drastic transition, I guess I would say, from like that very right-leaning conservative feel to it to now very much in the middle. And I mean, it's just like how Denver didn't used to be quite as far left-leaning. It's just, influx of different populations from different areas with different ideals. So Colorado Springs has went through that as well. But I agree with your point of you just don't feel it that much. It's not on your mind all the time in Colorado Springs. It's almost like this other thing, like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Like in Mariemi, independent.
He's an independent.
I think that's
mayor.
a great example of how Colorado Springs is like, we don't care about left, right. We're just trying to get stuff done for the city.
Yeah, and I think it plays off in just kind of the way that people interact. Like I don't feel uncomfortable walking around Colorado Springs with this shirt. I would be pretty nervous walking around this. Like, not that somebody's going to do something, but like Boulder or Golden.
You're going to get some comments.
Bro.
Lots of comments,
right? Like, it would not be okay. But that being said, right, like, it's also not everywhere, right? Like, will you see Trump 2024 flags? Yes. Will you see Harris Walls signs? Yes. Will you see pride flags? Yes. Will you see MAGA paraphernalia?
Yeah.
Yes. But like, I don't feel like it runs our lives here.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, because Colorado Springs is just so laid back.
It's laid back, man. Yeah.
And it's like chill.
It is. And I feel like in the Springs, it's like, it's this little microcosm of Colorado. So Colorado overall, like, you know how it is. You go west of the Front Range and it's red. It's a red state. You know what I mean? But I mean, a lot of the ways that's like California, right? Like coast is kind of blue and then the rest of the state's pretty red. But
minus the big resort towns.
Right, yeah. So you have like these spots in there, like you've got your Aspen, Vail, right, yeah. You've got those areas, but Colorado Springs is kind of like that on this little level because depending on what part of town you're in, downtown Colorado Springs, OCC, it's going to be a little bit more liberal left-leaning, if you will. Yeah. Then you get out in Black Forest and you're going to see more Trump flags, things of that nature. So you do see it all, but it's a good friendly mix is how I view it.
Yeah, even during election season, which we are in the
meat of right now, yeah.
Even during the throes of election season, like I still feel like pretty casual.
Yeah.
You know, it feels pretty casual. There's not like big riots happening everywhere. There's
Nobody's
not big,
torching
massive
freaking ballot boxes.
Yeah, it's just it's a pretty low key place.
Yeah,
and by the way, the factual data has also shown that Colorado Springs has mellowed out, right? That it has come more towards the independent, more towards the center. Still, I think a little bit as a city, I still think it's still technically considered a republic or a conservative stronghold in the state, as it's the largest conservative city in the state by definition. But it is not like, it's not overwhelming. It does not mean that there's not pride flags downtown or that like you can't support the Democratic Party. Like you can. That's fine. Nobody freaking cares.
And like you said, that's a good thing to think about. Like if you're thinking about moving to Colorado, whatever the case might be, you're just kind of investigating the area. Because we do get that question a lot. People are like, hey, am I going to feel like out of place there? Yeah. And I think the general consensus is Colorado Springs, welcome to all. Everybody's got a place.
Yep. And can I also just hop up on the soapbox for one more thing before we end this segment?
You go for it.
If your personality is your political affiliation, I know it sounds weird because I'm saying that while I'm wearing a Trump shirt. This is literally the only piece of political. It's election day, so I think it's okay that I wear this shirt. But if your personality is hinging on your political affiliation, just think about it. That's all I'm going to say.
Politics isn't life, man.
Yeah. By the way, if you're new to the channel, we are actually licensed realtors here in Colorado Springs. We love Colorado Springs. We really, really do. It's funny. I get these comments all the time. They're like, yeah, well, that house is in Colorado Springs, so that's an automatic no for me. And I'm like, well, I freaking love it here. So if you are listening to this and you're thinking about making a move to Colorado Springs, we are the guys that we would love to help you out. We have over 100 5-star reviews on Google. You can look us up. We are the Berisford Group, and this is our bread and butter. You can reach out there's an email and phone number down below, and we're the guys that will answer the phones, answer the emails, answer the carrier pigeons. We know how to read smoke signals. Actually, it's pretty rad. We learned that back in school. So if that interests you, if that is something that you are looking to do, we help people like you every single day, and we would be happy to do that. And this is kind of a new segment on our channel. If you've been a longtime viewer, thank you. We love you. But we are implementing this kind of podcast style. We've got a lot of really cool people lined up over the next coming months. Some local business owners, some people that have just done some really incredible things for the community, some Olympic athletes, some professional athletes. We got a lot of really cool stuff coming because, like we said earlier in this episode, we're trying to build community and
that's
build
key.
Pride in Colorado Springs. And so this is the place to be, living in Colorado Springs, the original. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of this great content.